Well, Jesse is busy as usual, and this is June 2013, Marvin Gardens, and it's actually June 30th, which is quite late for doing the June video, obviously. But there's a reason for that, and that is I took on a project that's been knocking around in my head for very many years, and I call it the Garden Perimeter Expansion Project. Now, I took some time-lapse video and some other live video, and I'm planning to put together a video of that project itself, and if I've done that in time for this video, I would insert it probably right about here. So I have a little early summer garden related project that I'm taking on here. And it involves some of the fencing around the garden. Now, coming off of the mini barn here, I've got this fencing, which you can see the wooden part, but you can also see the wire part of this fencing, and it's just sort of, especially when it gets to be just wire, like it is right there, just sort of ugly fencing, and I've been wanting to kind of get rid of it for a long time. For two reasons. One, it's ugly fencing and I don't like it. And two, it is the sort of the delimiter between the garden and the backyard, and in particular the pond area over here. And so I've long wanted or been thinking about doing something that puts sort of an entrance to the garden right close to the pond here, and opens up that entire space over to where these trees are. And I thought I would do that by putting in some split rail fencing, which looks kind of nice, and then maybe have a gate here and an arbor or something like that, and which just sort of would make this kind of a formal entrance to the garden and integrate it in here with the pond and the sitting area out here. So I'm finally going to do that. I committed to it. I've even got all the posts and rails I think that I need in order to pull it off, and I even got a little arbor entranceway. I'm going to build a gate, but I've got some work to do, because this pine tree here has got to go, because it's right in the middle where the fence line would be. This sort of cross between a tree and a bush, whatever it is, has got to go too. That birch tree can stay, and so this whole area in here, inclusive and up to where those two big pine trees are, will just be opened up and be part of the garden, with some sort of a gateway right where you can see a couple sticks in the ground there. So that's my task. I'm taking a few days off from or a few days off each week for the next three weeks or so, and so hopefully with those 4-day weekends strung together, I'll be able to come close to completing this endeavor. I'm going to try to, in my typical form, set up a few time-lapse cameras to kind of document everything. But it starts today. So here's what about 60 linear feet of post and rail fencing looks like when it's loaded into a trailer. And those are the posts down there, and then the long pieces are the rails. Boy, it was a project in itself, just getting down to Lowe's and getting this thing all picked out and loaded up. But that was the first step, and that's how I committed myself to doing the task. And this is the garden arbor kit that I purchased to highlight the entranceway. Here we go. Anyway, so this is how it turned out. And this gate here is what's always been the entrance to the garden. And the fence line used to go from here over to the corner of the mini barn there on the right hand side. But what we've done is we've put in this post and rail fencing and opened up this area here to be part of the garden interior. And although we're not adding any garden beds, now we have a formal entranceway with a gate designed and built by yours truly, and a little arbor here that kind of brings the garden area right close to the pond sitting area, and brings the entranceway into the backyard area of the house itself. So now from the house you can see the sitting area in the garden, and when you're sitting in the sitting area you can likewise look back at the house, and everything kind of comes together quite nicely. And like I say, I've been thinking about doing this project for a long time. Finally did it. Nice post and rail, by the way, from Lowe's. These rails are actually 11-foot 4x4s, so it's nice heavy duty fencing. And I also added this coated, plastic coated wire fencing, what I call varmint protection and dachshund retention fencing, because obviously it keeps the bunnies and the groundhogs and all that out, and it keeps curious dachshunds in, right, Frankie? Much to their chagrin. But other than things like this nasty stump here that I'm going to have to deal with, the project is complete. I did have to take down that pine tree in order to make it work. And I'm really happy, because it's like I say, I've been thinking about it for a long time. Finally went ahead and pulled it off. So, and I'm pretty pleased with the results. So, but anyway, let's get to the official gardening, and we'll start with chives. Got some grass up in here, but you can see that now that we're into June, we're past the bloom stage for the chives, but they are doing quite nicely. And my little water feature is actually doing pretty well too. Even little teeny tiny lily pads there. So it's kind of nice to have that back here. But here in bed number 1, cabbage is doing pretty well. We've harvested all our broccoli. I think maybe I have a video of that to insert here as well. So we're only about a third of the way through June, but there were some events here that I wanted to include, so hence this flashback. And the event in this case involves brassicas, and more specifically broccoli, because suddenly these guys are ready to be harvested, and I'm going to do so tonight. But maybe not that one. That one's a little small. But the thing is, they look like they're getting ready to, these little guys, you want to harvest them before these guys start to threaten to bloom. And it looks like they're about at that stage. So I've had bigger broccoli heads before, but I think these are ready to go. So that's what's happening tonight. And the other thing I wanted to show you involves a walk over here past Jesse, Julie, kohlrabi. And these guys are starting to look pretty darn good, especially that one right there. And there's my hand, so you can get kind of a feel for the size. I would say that that's 4 or 5 inches across, and that one's a little smaller, and that one's about the same size. So these guys are coming along nicely, and I was thinking That's harvest size, but then I looked back in the seed catalog, and it said that these guys can get up to 10 inches across. They're a very large variety of kohlrabi. So I'm not going to harvest them yet. Now there's some smaller ones here too. Those guys have quite a ways to go yet. Or if I do harvest one, it'll just be one, just to see how they are at this size, because if they can get up to 10 inches across, they're not even halfway there yet. So maybe I will let them go, but I think I'll pull one that's sort of in between two big ones, and so that those guys have plenty of room for growth, and I'll see how they taste at this stage, because I've never had them before, so that's fun too. One other quick update, and here you can see that the potatoes in this row, which were the row that came up successfully the first time around, are blooming, and they're hilled up again and also hay mulched. But the good news is where I got new seed potatoes and replanted, they're all coming up just the way that they're supposed to. So these two rows, although they're much later than normal, are coming in fine. And that's one that just I happened to probably miss when I was digging the potatoes last year, and it came up on its own. But anyway, I think there's still plenty of time to get a good potato harvest, because they don't take all that long. Usually it's midsummer when you harvest them, so maybe we'll be harvesting those two rows in September. But that's what I wanted to show you here in the early June garden, and then we'll do our, well, actually we're already doing that. I'll just send you back to the later this June video after I show you one quick thing here. The wrens have taken up residence. And a unique entrance on top there. But they don't seem to mind. And then finally the Brussels sprouts are coming along okay. And we do have some survivors of ground cherries. In fact, they're even starting to yield some ground cherries, but you can see that they're pretty small plants, but I think we're going to be okay. Now, the onions are over in this bed this year, and they're not really doing as well as they normally would, and I'm not sure if that's the soil or because it's been so wet. They're growing, but they just are not looking very healthy. Same with the eggplants. They're over here in bed one for the first time. They've been struggling. The new leaves that are coming in look pretty good, so I think we're going to be okay, but it hasn't been easy so far this year. Meanwhile, all the pole beans are vigorously climbing the trellises here, and blooming already, so we'll be seeing some some beans pretty soon. This is I think it's called Sunset Runner Bean. Nice pink blossoms, so that's pretty neat. I think these are the yard-long ties. Everything's blooming. Hey boy, don't dig up my marigolds. This is reserved for sweet potatoes, but my sweet potato slips have been so slow in, in sprouting that they're just not ready to get planted in the open garden yet. And it's so late, I don't know if I'm even going to get any sweet potatoes out of the deal. In contrast with that, however, This is Silver Queen corn, and it's looking great. Look at this nice dark green color, meaning it's getting plenty to eat. And some of the stuff is very close to chest high. So the adage is knee high by the 4th of July. These guys are going to be chest high, which is pretty nice. These are supposed to be peas, but the peas just never did anything, and they're also sort of overrun by these weeds, so not a good pea season this year. All our lettuce is bolting, but we have had a lot of good eating lettuce. Even the second planting of lettuce, they're starting to sprout up. It's just too warm for lettuce anymore. This is my mistake row this year. We have lots of problems this year. Where I planted beets and carrots by mistake in the same row. So they're coming in, but I don't know how I'm going to harvest them. Where there should have been another row of either carrots or beets, these are all volunteer marigolds, meaning they came up on their own from the marigolds that were planted last year. And so I ended up with actually 2 rows of marigolds, besides the ones that I've transplanted around the garden as well. So I may transplant some more of these. And finally, I'm kind of just sort of moving the camera around randomly. But anyway, there's a row of carrots right here that is looking pretty good that Frankie's checking out right now. So on to bed number 3. Peanuts. Now the peanuts, they just haven't been growing very much volume wise. They look okay. I've seen some blooms on them. I don't know if I can find any right now. I don't really see any right now. They're little yellow blooms that, from what I understand, is supposed to end up being peanuts, but they just haven't been growing, like I say, in volume as much as I thought they would. But at least they're continuing on. Meanwhile, our potato bed, remember I had to go out and get new seed potatoes and replant a couple of rows here. Those are the closer rows. I've already hilled them up, and they're doing fine, and I think we have plenty of time to get a good harvest out of them. But compared to this third row, which came up in the first round, and is already finished blooming, so it means the potatoes are starting to form underneath. You can just see the difference that time makes. Here we are in the leek area, and the leeks look really good. They're just liking this spot, and I've got them hay mulched. And I'll probably pull some because I've got them pretty tightly spaced right now, and make some early potato leek soup from last year's potatoes. But they're looking really good, so they're a good news story. Meanwhile, my okra suffered greatly. I've only got 3 plants that survived, but as you can see, I am getting some okra. And I also have in the mini barn, I'll show you this right now. I mean, not in the mini barn, in the mini greenhouse. My okra that I started, under the lights as the phase 2, and I'll plant those in here. They go until the fall, so I think we might even get some okra out of those guys, but mostly it's just to fill in the vacancies. Now, a good news story here is kohlrabi that I'm growing, as you may recall, for the first time this year. Look at the size of these guys. They are coming in great. I think the biggest one is probably this one right here, which is the size of, I don't know, kind of the size of a muskmelon. Now they say that they can get this big and they are not woody, so I've let them grow to this size, and I'll be harvesting several of these pretty soon. I did take a small one as of last month and roasted it, and it was just great. So I'm hoping that they're true to their word, that these bigger ones are still going to be not going to be woody, because they're doing just great. And I think they'll hold well in the fridge like the other brassicas. That brings us to peppers and dachshunds, which are checking out the peppers and the kohlrabi. And the peppers kind of got off to a slow start, but they're doing okay. This particular variety, which I think are, I don't know, Tai Longs, haven't got any coming in except for very small ones. These guys are Tequila Sunrise, and they're coming in okay. You can see quite a few of those. They'll turn a nice orange color before we're all done. These are Melrose peppers, and as you can see, we've got lots of those guys coming in. So they're recovering from their slow start. That's good. And this is California Wonder, which are blooming and just starting to set some fruit, but nothing recognizable yet. That brings us to tomatoes, and this variety is delicious. The largest variety that I'm growing this year. And these plants all look quite healthy, and as you can see, there's some nice green tomatoes coming in. The next smallest variety are what the heck are they called? Amish paste, that's right. And there's a pretty good sized one right there. They are probably struggling the most, but they're doing okay. And then, of course, our favorite of all time, Juliet. And there's a nice cluster of Juliets coming in. Nothing ripe yet. Oh, look at all those. Those are looking really good. Frankie's already had a green one that I knocked off by mistake. He thought it was pretty good. But anyway, they are looking very healthy, so the tomatoes are a good news story. And we're already getting summer squash. Nice zucchini here. Had some zucchini last night. Looks like there's several more ready to be harvested tonight. And right next to that are yellow crooknecks, and they are also looking pretty good. We're having some activity here. And the third variety of summer squash, and summer squash is the only official squash that I'm growing this year, are these yellow scallop squash. And they're also coming in. We also harvested a few of those. And this is our second bed of eating corn. This is called candy corn, and they look pretty good color, nice deep green. I think they've suffered a little bit because they're not in a raised bed and it's been wet, and that slowed them down a little bit. But I'm encouraged. They look pretty darn good, and so corn is a good news story this year. And then I got this couple rows of sunflowers that are coming up, and I transplanted a couple of rows of marigolds out here just to put some color out here in this bed, which is otherwise pretty much vacant. So that's it for the garden proper. Let's take a walk out here to the external corn bed, because it's looking really good as well, as you can see as we approach. Now I've got I think 2 varieties of popcorn and 1 variety of Indian corn going here, and they're all doing just nice. Now I think this is the, well, I can't remember exactly, but this end down here, they're a little shorter, but I think that's just because of the variety that they are. This end, they're already well over chest high, and I think that's the Indian corn. Then they kind of fall off at the end here, and I think that's just because it's very wet, as you can see here on this end of the corn bed, because we have been in a pattern of just downpours coming in every afternoon, or almost every afternoon. Now I did get some freebie melon plants, so I planted them out here, and I got some freebie cucumber plants or seeds, so I planted them out here as well. But I'm not officially growing them. They're just, like I say, freebies, so I just put them in with the corn. Now, Frankie is rather upset with us because I had the audacity to come out here without him. I'm coming back, Frankie. We won't go out to the orchard this time, but I am getting some activity out there. I might get some apples, might get a few peaches, so we'll take a look at that next month. But I think that's going to do it for this month, right, Frankie? What do you think? Anything else we have to show the people? Don't think so. So, that is going to do it for June Marvin Gardens 2013 in the newly expanded perimeter garden, which we're very thrilled about around here. And we've got our troubles this year gardening. Some things just aren't happening the way they normally do. Maybe because of where they are. Maybe because of other factors. Who knows? But other things are doing just great. And so we're having a pretty good season. And it's a beautiful night out tonight. So we're going to sit here a little while longer. And then head inside and maybe eat some of this stuff that we have. But that's going to do it. Marvin Gardens, June 2013. And we will see you next month in July.